Would you like to 10x your productivity and stop feeling so overworked and overwhelmed? Welcome to the Extreme Productivity Podcast with New York Times bestselling author and Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Kevin Kruse.
Welcome, everyone, to the Extreme Productivity Podcast. This is Kevin. What are you working on these days? Hopefully, you're working on it with focus and that you're extremely productive. That's my wish for you. I've been putting in mega hours on a new webinar called 3 Secrets of Ultra Productive Business Owners. It's going to be this free 1-hour webinar that I'm going to be putting on each week for, of course, business owners, entrepreneurs, and eventually, initially, I'm only going to target people with Facebook ads. You probably won't even know about it. Eventually, I'm going to open it up to my email newsletter subscribers. So make sure you're on that list if you're at all interested. It's amazing. I've probably put in, 40 hours of work on the slides, probably more, for a 1-hour presentation. But I think it's time well spent. Hey, in the last episode, we talked about how to solve the 5 deadly meeting sins. And in this episode, we are going to just remind ourselves of the most important asset that we have and how to protect it. So this is really a refresher. It's just a reminder, but a critical one. So, take a minute and think about the things that you value most in life. What's most important in life? Most important things. You're probably going to rattle off family, friends, health, money. Maybe if you're a fan of the show, you would add something else into that answer. But most people say, oh, my friends or money or, health is most important. But I think ultra successful people actually put time as the number one item. And why is time more valuable than health? Well, health is way up there. I think it's probably number 2. But we can get sick. We can get really sick. And we can regain our health. We can have a big influence on getting our health back or losing our health through certain behaviors. Money, of course, listen, we can lose all our money and make it back again. People do that all the time. You can earn more money. Friends are important. I love friends. We all need friends in our life. And yet, how many of our closest friends back in college do we, no longer even keep in touch with? How many people were in your actual wedding party that you haven't talked to in 10 or more years? Yes, friends are awesome and are so valuable. And yet we can lose friends and get new ones that kind of replace that spot in our life. What about love? What about our husbands and wives? Yes, I know your spouse means the world to you, and this is really cold, but 50% of married people, at least in the United States, end up divorced. And a lot of those divorced people, find a new love of their life, a new husband or wife. So even your spouse, it sounds so cold, but people do replace their spouses. But time, it's a whole different thing. You can never lose time and get it back again. You cannot spend time and then go out and earn more of it. You can't buy time. You can't rent time. You can't borrow time. Use it wisely and enjoy the benefits. Squander it, and it is just gone forever. Time is really the great equalizer, I say. Some people are born rich, others are poor. Some people, end up with Ivy League degrees. Others are high school dropouts. Some people are genetically gifted. They're athletes, they're tall, they're handsome, they're good looking. And then there's others like me. But regardless of, who we were born to and our DNA and all this other stuff, time is the great equalizer. We all have the same number of minutes in a day. Think about how much attention you give to your money. We work so hard to make our money. We track our money. I see all the time people with, like their stock portfolio. It's an app on their phone, and every day, several times a day, they're looking, is the stock market up 0.5%? Did it drop 2%? Did I just make $500 today? Did I just lose $10 today? I mean, they're like obsessed with the comings and goings of their money, on an hourly basis. You wouldn't leave your wallet sitting out, just for anybody to get. You wouldn't give your ATM card to a stranger. You wouldn't hand out wads of cash to strangers. And yet we do all of those things with our time. We routinely let people steal our time, even though it's more valuable than money. So this podcast, every episode is dedicated to a new idea on how we can protect our time, get more out of our time, experience time more. But for the next couple of minutes, I will just remind you of some of the core things. Over and over again, I do surveys. I just did an event where there were over 100 CEOs in the audience. And it was a little one of these audience response systems where they clicked on a remote control answering questions. And when it came to the number one thing that interrupts, their time, it was virtually a tie, meetings and email. So meetings are notorious time killers, and I just did an episode on that. They start late, they're poorly run, they end without really a clear outcome. This was the famous line Mark Cuban told me when I was writing the book: never take a meeting unless someone is writing you a check. Now, we don't have the same control as a billionaire Mark Cuban, but if you're sitting in a meeting and discover you don't really need to be there, just excuse yourself and leave. If you can't, because your boss is the one running the meeting and he's running it poorly, do what you can to be a change agent, to remind people, hey, that's really interesting tangent we're on, but given that we only have 15 more minutes, I'd just like to suggest we put that idea in the parking lot, as they say, and we go back to the main question at hand. If it's done with tact, your boss and the people in the room will actually appreciate you getting everyone back, onto the primary goal, the primary task, and making the most use of the time. Email, it's usually number one or number two for most people. And the real problem is that we get so much email that when we have bad habits, we respond like Pavlov's dog every time our phone dings or vibrates with a new message. We stop what we're doing and we jump to the phone. A study by the University of California in Irvine estimates that it can take upwards of 20 minutes to regain momentum following an interruption. Now, 20 minutes sounds like a long time, but whether it's 3 minutes or 20 minutes, we know that you cannot maintain a flow state. You cannot get into that peak productivity if every 3 minutes you're reading some email message or text message that's coming in on your phone. The most successful people know that temptation is hard to control. So they just shut their phone off. They shut email off, and they only process email. They only process social media at certain times of the day. A third and last thing for this episode that I want to remind everyone is, basically time thieves. And this is hard because often our time is stolen, and we do it willingly because we want to be helpful. We want to be approachable and helpful to others. But we need to remember, what is the magic number? I'm looking at the sticker right on my computer monitor right now, 1440. There's only 1,440 minutes in a day. How can you help others while achieving your own goals and priorities? So it doesn't mean you have to be a jerk. It doesn't mean you have to say no to everything or a hermit. But instead of a wide open door policy, maybe you just have set office hours where, between 4 and 5 o'clock every day, your door is always open. Or maybe Fridays are the day that you're going to walk around and be accessible and everybody knows it's a good time to catch up. There's side benefits to restricting access to, if you're a manager and you have team members. A lot of people are looking at the research showing that a fully open door policy fosters dependency. You want team members that are going to be problem solvers and risk takers. You don't want them to feel they have to run things by you every single time. I got a friend who pre-allocates. He'll meet with anybody. He will help strangers, but he decides, I think it's 1 hour a week, he's scheduled a time block, and he will give that time away freely to all those, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Hey, can I pick your brain? He'll say yes, but as soon as that 1 hour time slot is full, they bounce to the following week and the following week. He's probably, scheduled several weeks in advance, if not months. But if someone wants his time, it's there. He's not saying he won't help. They just need to sort of get in line. So the time thieves are everywhere. And the idea is just, if they're strangers, if it's really advancing someone else's agenda and does not align with your own goals, then use some of these ideas as a way to combat them. Okay, I'm sure you know that this podcast is based on my best-selling book, 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. You do know that, right? It has over 200 5-star reviews on Amazon. It's doing great. I think you should grab a copy. Heck, grab two, one for yourself and someone you care about. Like that spouse who is maybe second most important thing in your life. Don't tell them don't tell them I told you they're not number one. Grab a copy because this book sums it all up. People email me every day that it has literally changed their life. I think it can do the same for you. Until next week, remember, master your minutes, all 1,440 of them, to master your life.